name's George Harrison. I've got a lot to say. I was kind of a big part of the founding of this city. I won't make too big a deal of that, but let me just give you a little bit of my background. I was born in 1841 in Manchester, England, and my mother had just been baptized into the LDS faith. And by 1856, many people from England were moving to America, to Zion is what we all called it. And so we were able to be part of the original Martin handcart company. We came across the plains in 1856. While on that journey, I was just a young man. I got very, very ill, and we'd gone swimming, and I'd gotten malaria from the mosquitoes, and just about died. And the handcart trip was hard enough anyway. And I just knew my parents didn't need to be taking care of me along with all my sisters and my brother. So I decided to sneak away from the camp one day. I knew that I was ill. I saw some smoke in the distance. Thought maybe I could find a village. I ended up finding what we called then an Indian village. It was the Sioux Indians, Native Americans, and I was able to get some food there. But the food was a little rich. I got sick, and to make a long story short, I passed out. My father came and found me a little bit later, and the Indians convinced him to leave me with them. The only chance they could see for me to live would be to live among the Indians, let them take care of me. So these Native Americans, these Sioux Indians, took care of me. And my family went on to Utah. I lived with them for a full year. And they made me clothes that were just like the clothes that they wore, Native American clothes, and we moved from place to place. One day we saw the soldiers marching by. Turns out it was Johnston's army. They were actually, this was 1857, they were on their way to Utah, probably to get rid of the Mormons. And they saw this little white child among all the Indians and decided he can't be living along, it's against the law for white children to live with the Indians. And so they picked me up, put me in the army. I was 14 years old. I was a big young man, and they said, well, you can't stay with them. We're on our way to Utah. Your family's there. We're most likely going to kill them at some point, but until then, you can be in the army with us. They said, now you got to have a job. What do you do? Well, I remembered back when we came across the Atlantic the summer before in the great big ship. It's called the Horizon. I just fell in love with the food they were making on the ship, flapjacks and other great foods. And so when he asked what I did, I looked at him and I said, look, I'm a cook. That's what I do. I'd never cooked a thing in my life, but I told him I was a cook. And so they put me in with in the quartermaster's corps and made me a cook. And then the real chef said, you don't know how to cook, do you? And I said, no, but I needed to give him a job. That's what I do. At least that's what I told him I do. So they taught me how to cook. I learned how to do it. We came to Utah. They wouldn't let me leave. By that time, I was cooking. We were set up at Camp Floyd, and I remained a cook for 4 years until 1861. In 1861, as many of you know, the Civil War started, and Johnston's army broke up, and some went to the north and some went to the south, and I was still just a young man. They let me go home. My father had let me know that they live in Springville now, and so he came and got me, actually. I'd been saving my money. I gave it to him. He was able to buy some things he needed here in Springville, and I came to Springville. Worked here in Springville for a number of years. I was a freighter. I did all sorts of jobs, met a wonderful woman, Rosella White, became my wife. And we were working and trying to do the best we could in this beautiful pioneer settlement near the Hobble Creek called Springville. And we realized with the coming of the train that there was going to be a need for restaurants and hotels. There were going to be a lot of people passing through. So my wife and I, in 1883, we'd been married just a number of years by that point. I was 42 years old. We decided to buy a piece of land on Main Street on about 245 South Main. For $300, we got a piece of property. And for another $75 and a bunch of wheat that I'd been storing, we were able to purchase a small little frame building, and we made a restaurant. We put a kitchen in the back. We had some tables out front, and we opened up a restaurant, and I began to cook steaks. And the steaks were so good, I hate to say it, but I was really good. It was my wife's recipe, but I was the cook. And I became known as Beefsteak Harrison. And we realized there weren't very many hotels in town. The Boyers had a hotel, but we needed another one. And since I was right across from the train depot that went right down the middle of Main Street, we decided to build a hotel. So we built a 10-room hotel, attached it to the back of the little frame building that we had bought, that we had put up. And that's where the Harrison Hotel came from. And I've got to give all the credit to my wife. We owned a home 3 blocks away, down on 3rd South, or excuse me, 3rd West and 3rd South. And but the hotel was where we spent all of our time. And so for a while, we mostly lived in the very top floor of the hotel. That was the 3rd floor. On the 2nd floor, we had all the guest rooms. On the 1st floor, we had the restaurant. We had some other rooms. But my wife, this is the credit I need to give. She did everything. She made all the quilts. She took pieces of fabric from the drummers that came through and made quilts for all the rooms. My wife made all the preserves, all the jams and jellies that we used in the hotel, all the soups, and she was incredible. I got all the credit, and she did all the work. But we had a great marriage, and we had a great family that supported us. And for many, many years, this hotel served this area. In fact, just so you know, general authorities would come down this way to visit the different wards and stakes, and they often and always chose to stay in my hotel. I know my steaks were good, but I think the beds and the cleanliness of the hotel that my wife kept them all comfortable and made them all come back. So we were a big part of Springville. We were very happy to be here. People were, they loved us. We made soup. Whenever anybody was ill, we would take soup to people all over the community. The Native Americans that lived here, I had a soft place in my heart for them, because they saved my life. And whenever they came to my hotel, I would meet them out back, and I would feed them, and they were always welcome at the Harrison Hotel. This is early Springville. I'm sure the people of this town are still that very good and kind today, but we made sure people knew that when you came to our hotel, you were always welcome. It didn't matter your race, it didn't matter your gender. This was the place to be, the Harrison Hotel. And I'm George Harrison. They call me Beefsteak.